I never planned to reveal my success at my brother Andrew's wedding. For years I kept my true position hidden from my family, let them believe I worked at some tiny consulting firm, while I secretly built an empire from the ground up. But Andrew's cruel words that day, they changed everything. Picture this. I'm standing in the ballroom of the Langham in downtown Boston. Crystal chandeliers overhead cast a warm golden glow across the room. White roses and baby's breath everywhere. Each arrangement probably cost more than my first month's rent out of college. And waiters in sharp black uniforms weaving through the crowd, trays of champagne perfectly balanced on their fingertips. I'd picked a simple navy blue dress. Fitted but understated. Nothing flashy. The only jewelry I wore? My grandmother's antique silver locket. I caught myself tracing its surface, rubbing the worn-down engraving like I always did when nerves kicked in. Lauren. My mother's voice cut through my thoughts like a knife. She swept into view in an emerald green dress that probably cost more than most people's mortgage. There you are. Why aren't you mingling? Everyone's asking about you. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, pausing on the dress, the shoes, the lack of diamonds. I saw it instantly. The disappointment. That tiny narrowing of her eyes, the pinch around her mouth. Though I suppose there's not much to tell, she added with that sigh she'd perfected over the years, one that said louder than words just how much I'd failed her. I took a long sip of champagne. Crisp. A little bitter. My mind flashed to the board meeting I'd led just yesterday. We'd closed on the acquisition of our biggest competitor. A $300 million deal that would make headlines next week. My signature? Still drying on the contracts. I'm doing fine, Mom, I said, keeping my tone even. The consulting work keeps me busy. She rolled her eyes, adjusting her diamond bracelet. Busy isn't the same as successful, Lauren. I nearly laughed. Look at your brother, she said, nodding toward Andrew, who was surrounded by a circle of admirers in a custom tux. Youngest VP in Crestline Partners history. About to marry the CEO's daughter. That's what real success looks like. I fought back a smile. Because I knew the truth. Crestline was crumbling. Their stock had tanked 15% last quarter. Their market share? Shrinking. And for months now, they'd been trying to schedule a meeting with my company's CEO. Me. But of course my family didn't know that. They didn't know that the tiny consulting firm I worked for was actually Monroe Strategic Advisors, one of the largest business advisory firms in the country. And they certainly didn't know. I wasn't just an employee. I was the founder, CEO, of a company now valued at over $2.7 billion. Lauren. Andrew's voice boomed from across the room. He strolled over with champagne in hand, his new bride Brooke wrapped around his arm like a designer accessory. His cologne hit me first, loud, expensive, the same scent he'd bathed in since college. Still hiding in corners at parties, he said, loud enough for half the room to hear. Some things never change, huh? Brooke giggled, adjusting the sparkle explosion of her gown. Oh, Andrew told me all about your little consulting job, she smiled. The kind of smile that never touches the eyes. It's so cute that you're trying to make it on your own. I just watched them letting the memories come. 15 years ago, Andrew was barely scraping by, failing classes, partying every weekend, while I graduated top of my class. With honors. 3 job offers before I'd even walked the stage. But then Dad stepped in. Used his connections to slide Andrew into an entry-level job at Crestline. And me? I was told to be realistic. Someone has to do the small jobs, Andrew said, just loud enough for nearby guests. He swirled his champagne, light bouncing off his platinum wedding band. Poor sis. still grinding away at that tiny firm while the rest of us build real careers. But hey, at least you're independent, right? That tone. That smug tone that said independence was just failure with lipstick. Brooke laughed again. A sharp glass-breaking sound. Oh, darling, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you. I felt the weight of my grandmother's locket resting against my chest. Her last gift. Her last words echoing in my mind. Success comes in many forms, Lauren, she'd said. Don't be afraid to make your own path. I know you can. Success comes in many forms, Andrew, I said quietly, locking eyes with him. Sure, sure. He waved a hand, already dismissing me. Same exact move Dad used when he was done pretending to care. Speaking of success, did you hear? Crestline's CEO is coming to the reception tonight. James Whittaker himself. He puffed up with pride. He never comes to these things, but for me? He let the rest hang in the air. I knew exactly why James Whittaker was coming. He wanted to talk about selling Crestline. He'd been trying to meet with me for weeks now. And I'd been delaying. Waiting. Watching just how desperate they'd get. Their numbers are worse than they know, I thought. That's wonderful, I said out loud, hiding my smile behind a slow sip of champagne. Andrew leaned in close, his breath hot against my ear. Try not to embarrass me when he gets here, Lauren, Andrew muttered under his breath. Just stay in the background. This is important for my career. Before I could respond, a hush fell over the room. Like something out of a movie, the crowd parted, clean, deliberate, and James Whittaker walked in. Exactly how I remembered from our video calls. Tall, silver-haired, sharp-eyed. Every inch of him screamed power. His suit probably cost more than a new car. Andrew straightened immediately, dragging Brooke with him as he prepared to intercept. I saw it in his face, that desperate eagerness, like a puppy waiting for a treat. But then Whittaker's eyes locked on me. And lit up. Without a second of hesitation, he changed direction and made a beeline straight for me. Miss Monroe, he called out, his voice loud, warm, and unmistakably pleased. I had no idea you'd be here. Andrew froze mid-step. Confusion hit his face like a slap. Brooke's brows furrowed. My mother, stiff as stone beside me, didn't move a muscle. We've been trying to get a meeting for weeks, Whittaker said, extending his hand to me like I was royalty. Didn't expect to run into you at an employee's wedding. I shook his hand, cool, firm. The kind of handshake reserved for equals. Not the deferential grip my brother would have offered. Hello, James, I said calmly. Surprised to see me? Are you kidding? It's not every day I run into the CEO of Monroe Strategic Advisors at a Crestline wedding. He paused, glanced at Andrew, then back at me. His brow furrowed. Wait, Andrew's your? My brother, I confirmed. And I smiled just a little as the color drained from Andrew's face. The silence that followed? Deafening. My mom's hand trembled around her glass. Dad's jaw actually dropped. But Andrew? Andrew looked like a man watching his castle collapse brick by brick. Whittaker blinked. Your brother? But he told me his sister worked at some local consulting firm. That's what they all thought, I said clearly, letting the words carry. I never corrected them. Right then, Caroline's wine glass slipped through her fingers. Shattered on the marble floor. The sound cracked through the silence like lightning. And with that, the whispers exploded. Everywhere, murmurs, stares, side-eyes ping-ponging between me and Andrew. Like a courtroom gallery waiting for the verdict. But I didn't look away from him. I just watched. Watched as the illusion unraveled. His ego, his image, everything he built on top of me crumbled. This wasn't how I planned to tell them. But right then, standing in the middle of that ballroom, glass shards at my feet and champagne in my veins, I realized something. Sometimes, the best moments are the ones you never plan. And the look on Andrew's face? I'll remember it forever. And this? This was only the beginning. The next few minutes? Chaos. Choreographed chaos. My mother rushed over, fake smile plastered on like foundation. Her fingers gripped my arm, nails digging in. "Lauren, darling," she said, syrup sweet. "Why didn't you tell us about your position?" She whispered that last word like it was a diagnosis. I took my time. Let the champagne bubbles dance down my throat before answering. "You never asked, Mom," I said, locking eyes with her. "You were too busy throwing confetti at Andrew's achievements to care about my little consulting job." Her face faltered, just for a second. Then came the reset. That smile. The one she'd worn at every country club luncheon since I was 10. I could practically see her rewriting history in real time, casting herself as the doting mother of a secret genius. Meanwhile, James Whittaker was still standing nearby, looking both entertained and deeply uncomfortable. Like he'd wandered into a very awkward Thanksgiving dinner. "Miss Monroe," he finally said, clearing his throat. "I didn't realize this was a family event. Would now be a good time to discuss the merger." "Merger?" Andrew's voice jumped an octave. His expression twisted from confusion to panic. He reached out, grabbing my arm hard. "What merger?" I calmly pulled his hand off me. My voice didn't waver. "The one where Monroe Strategic Advisors is considering buying Crestline Partners." I turned to James. "Though after tonight, I might need to rethink the acquisition." Andrew turned white. Brooke looked like she might faint. Her hand flew to her necklace like it was a life preserver. But that would make you," Andrew sputtered. "Your boss." I raised an eyebrow. "Yes, it would. Funny how life turns out." That's when Dad shoved his way through the crowd. I smelled his aftershave before I saw him, same brand since my school recitals. He squared his shoulders like he was about to argue with a contractor. "Now hold on just a minute," he barked. "You can't just barge in and ruin your brother's wedding with these claims." James Whittaker stepped in, voice calm but firm. "I assure you, sir, your daughter is exactly who she says she is." He looked at me with genuine respect. "Monroe Strategic is the largest advisory firm in the country. Ms. Monroe built it from the ground up. We've been negotiating a potential merger for months." And then I watched it hit him. My father. The man who told me I was dreaming too big. Who told me to be realistic. Who made sure every door opened for Andrew but warned me not to aim too high. But the money," my mother whispered, mascara cracking around her eyes. "All those times you said you couldn't help with family expenses." "Oh, you mean the 50 grand you took from my savings for Andrew's MBA? My voice was calm, but inside, the resentment burned hot. "The money you never paid back because, and I quote, Andrew needs it more for his future?" For once, my mother looked ashamed. Her eyes dropped to her heels. Brooke stepped forward, her dress rustling like a storm. "Andrew, darling, did you know about this? About her company?" "Of course not," he snapped, flustered. Then tried to smooth his tone. "Lauren's just always been jealous of my success. This has to be some kind of mistake." But James raised an eyebrow. "The only mistake, Mr. Monroe, was your understanding of your sister's role in the business world. Monroe Strategic Advisors has generated more revenue in the last year than Crestline has made in the past 5. The room went still again. Frozen. Every guest now fully tuned into the real show. Andrew's dream wedding had become a boardroom bloodbath. "I think," I said softly, "we should continue this conversation somewhere more private." I turned to James. "Would you excuse me, Daniel?" He gave a slight nod, his eyes saying we'll talk soon. I led the family to a side room just off the ballroom. Closed the door behind us. The silence inside was deafening. Then, "How dare you?" Andrew exploded. His voice echoed off the walls. "This is my wedding day. You couldn't let me have this one thing." I laughed. Dry. No humor. "One thing? You've had everything, Andrew. Dad's connections got you into Crestline. Mom's jewelry paid for your MBA. My savings funded your little startup attempts. Meanwhile, I built something real, something lasting, all on my own. We were trying to protect you, Mom insisted. Her hands wrung together, bracelets chiming nervously. The business world is so cruel to women. No, Mom. You weren't protecting me. I locked eyes with her. You were dismissing me. Every win I had, every milestone, I got a pat on the head and a reminder to stay in my lane. Dad stepped forward. The businessman emerged. I could almost see the calculations behind his eyes. Now, Lauren, let's be reasonable. That boardroom voice. We're family. Surely we can find a way to move forward together. Something that benefits everyone. You mean now that you know I'm successful you want in? I tilted my head. The merger with Crestline was a courtesy to James. He's a good CEO with a bad board. But after tonight, I looked straight at Andrew. I think it's time for some changes. You can't do this, he whispered, the arrogance in his voice cracking. Fear seeping in. My position, my future. Your position, I said coolly, was built on sand. You've lost 3 major clients this year. The only reason you still have a job is because of your connection to Brooke's family. I smoothed the fabric of my dress. Don't worry, though. When Monroe Strategic acquires Crestline, we'll find a role more aligned with your actual qualifications. Brooke let out a choked sob. My father won't let this happen. He's on the board. Your father, I said gently, called me last week. Begged me to make sure the merger goes through. Crestline is drowning, Brooke. And Monroe Strategic is the only one willing to throw a rope. That hit home. Andrew slumped into a chair, wrinkled his tux without even noticing. His face? Shell-shocked. For all these years while we mocked you. His voice was a whisper now. You were building an empire? I tried to tell you. I touched the locket at my neck. So many times. But no one listened. You were all too busy planning Andrew's next promotion. Too busy perfecting the family image. I walked toward the door. The heels of my shoes tapped against the floor, sharp, certain. Now you know. And things are going to change. Lauren, please, my mother called out. Her voice cracked. We're still family. I paused. My hand rested on the cool metal of the door. That word, family, it hung between us. Heavy. Family. I turned back slowly. Family supports. Family listens. Family doesn't mock and dismiss and tear down. I exhaled. You weren't family when I was struggling. You don't get to claim me now. I opened the door and stepped back into the ballroom. Cool air hit my cheeks like clarity. Like freedom. James was waiting by the bar with 2 glasses of champagne. He held one out to me. Shall we discuss the merger terms, Ms. Monroe? I smiled. Absolutely. Let's start with Crestline's management structure. As we walked off together, I felt their eyes on me. My family. The ones who had underestimated me for years. But not anymore. The simple navy dress I'd chosen to stay under the radar? It felt like armor now. They thought I was a disappointment. They thought I'd never amount to anything. Now they knew exactly who I was. And this? This was only the beginning. The weeks after Andrew's wedding were everything I expected. A Category 5 storm of drama, denial, and desperate damage control. My phone buzzed around the clock with texts. Lauren, sweetheart, let's talk like family. Mom, your brother is devastated. How could you do this? Dad, we need to talk about my future at Crestline. I ignored them all. I had a merger to complete. The morning of the Crestline Partners Board meeting, I stood in my office on the 50th floor of Monroe Tower, looking out over the Boston skyline. The early sun caught the edges of the glass buildings, washing the city in gold. Boston Harbor shimmered in the distance, a deep, calming blue. This wasn't the simple navy dress from the wedding. Today, I wore a black Armani suit, tailored to perfection. My hair pulled into a sleek chignon. Diamond studs in my ears, small, flawless, and unmistakable. I wasn't hiding anymore. There was a knock. 3 sharp raps. "Your brother is here again, Miss Monroe," Taylor said, stepping just inside the door. Her voice perfectly neutral, but I saw it in her eyes. This was getting old. 3rd time this week. I sighed and glanced at my watch. A vintage Cartier. My grandmother's. The only inheritance I accepted. Send him in. Might as well deal with this before the meeting. Andrew walked in looking wrecked. Suit wrinkled. Tie loose. Eyes hollow and ringed with dark circles. Hair wild like he'd been dragging his hands through it nonstop. "Lauren, please," he blurted, not even waiting for the door to shut. "You have to hear me out." "I'm listening," I said, taking my seat behind the desk. "The only thing on it? A folder. Labeled simply, merger. Oh, I'm not sure what's left to say after, 20 voicemails? 37 texts." He looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. "I know I was awful at the wedding. I know I dismissed everything you've done. But you can't just take over Crestline. My whole life is there." "Your whole life," I repeated slowly, "was handed to you. Every promotion, every title, every opportunity. Gift-wrapped by Dad. Funded by Mom. Sometimes by me." "That's not fair," he said, but even he didn't believe it. "Not fair." I stood up, planting both hands on the desk. "What's not fair is watching you use my savings for your MBA without asking. Mocking my tiny firm while I built an empire. Calling me a failure while I succeeded beyond anything you'll ever touch." "I'm sorry," he whispered. "And for the first time in our adult lives." I think he meant it. The sunlight caught the tears brimming in his eyes. For just a second, I saw the little boy I'd adored. Before Dad picked favorites. Before we became competitors in a race only one of us knew we were running. "Sorry doesn't change the past, Andrew," I said, my voice softening just slightly. "And it won't change what's about to happen." I checked the time again. "The board meets in an hour. You might want to prepare." "What happens to me?" he asked, voice cracking. I studied him. His designer suit. That expensive watch. The empty trophies of a life he didn't build. "That depends on you." Monroe Strategic rewards performance, not last names. If you want to stay on after the acquisition, you'll have to prove yourself. Actually prove yourself. His face drained. "You mean?" "Starting over. From the bottom. Learning the business for real. No fast tracks. No back doors." He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. "It's that or severance. Your choice." Just then, the door burst open again, despite Taylor's protests. My parents. Mom looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyeliner smudged. Dad's usual confidence? Gone. He hesitated at the threshold like he wasn't sure he belonged here. "Lauren," my mother began, her voice trembling. "We've been trying to reach you." "I've been busy," I said coolly. "Running my tiny firm is time-consuming." Dad stepped forward, slipping into his old corporate mask, furrowed brow, tight jaw, negotiation tone. "Honey," he said carefully, "we need to be rational about this. You can't just destroy your brother's career over a few misunderstandings." "Misunderstandings?" I let out a low laugh, sharp and echoing. "That's what we're calling years of neglect? Dismissal? Disrespect." Mom stepped in, hands ringing, rings flashing. "We made mistakes. But we're family. Surely that counts for something." I opened a drawer, pulled out an old photo. The last family portrait before I launched Monroe Strategic. I placed it on the desk between us. In the picture, I stood off to the side. In a plain dress. They were all in designer clothes, grinning like they'd won something. "Family counted when I was starting this company," I said, tapping the photo. "It counted when I was working 18-hour days. When I needed help. When I was begging you to see me." I looked up. "But now? Now it's just business." A knock interrupted us. Taylor again. "Ms. Monroe?" The board is ready. I stood, straightened my jacket. Thank you. I'll be right there. To my family, I said, you're welcome to watch the meeting from the monitors in the waiting area. I think you'll find it enlightening. The Crestline boardroom fell silent when I entered. 15 people. All eyes on me. James stood and greeted me with a nod. Ms. Monroe, thank you for joining us. Shall we begin? The next hour? A masterclass in corporate restructuring. Slide after slide. Chart after chart. Projection after projection. This company is bleeding resources, I said. Our review found overlapping roles, bloated budgets, and inefficiencies in leadership. Many positions were created based on personal relationships, not merit. Behind me, the slides shifted to red graphs and bullet points. Through the glass wall, I could see them. My family, watching in silence, watching as the daughter they underestimated took command of the empire they never thought she could build. Andrew had sunk into a chair, head in his hands. My parents stood still as statues, finally understanding just how far I'd come and how much power I held. And finally, I said, facing the silent boardroom, Monroe Strategic will be implementing a complete overhaul of Crestline's management structure. No more positions handed out based on family ties or favors. From now on, it's competence or nothing. A balding board member cleared his throat. And existing employees will be evaluated based on actual contributions and skill sets, I said evenly. Those who've coasted on connections will need to prove they belong or look elsewhere. The meeting adjourned with quiet murmurs and tense nods. As the boardroom emptied, Daniel Morgan approached, something like admiration in his eyes. Brilliant presentation, as always, he said, voice low. Though I have to ask, your brother's position? It'll be handled fairly, I replied, gathering my materials. If he's willing to earn his place, there's a role for him. Starting in entry-level sales. Morgan nodded. You're more generous than most would be. This was never about revenge, I said, slipping the folder into my briefcase. It's about building something real. Something that lasts. When I stepped back into the waiting area, they were still there. My family. But now, they looked smaller. Like the illusion of their power had finally cracked, and the truth had settled in. So that's it? Andrew asked quietly. Everything changes, just like that? No, I said, meeting his eyes. Everything changed years ago. You just didn't see it. Too busy looking down on me. I turned to my parents. The new contracts go out tomorrow. I suggest you read them carefully. My mother stepped forward, eyes wet with tears. Lauren, we were wrong. So wrong. Can't we start over? I thought about all those dinners where my accomplishments were brushed aside. The birthdays overshadowed by Andrew's promotions. The silence when I tried to share a win. The noise when he barely tried at all. Starting over would mean forgetting the past, I said slowly. And I don't want to forget. Those years taught me how to rely on myself. How to fight. How to build. My father's voice broke the silence, soft, unfamiliar. And who are you now? He asked. No edge. No authority. Just uncertainty. Sunlight streamed in through the tall glass behind me. I'm the woman who built a billion-dollar company while you were all too busy mocking her tiny firm to notice. I'm the CEO who just acquired the company you treated like royalty. And I'm the daughter who finally stopped asking for your approval. I turned toward the elevators, then paused, looked back. They stood frozen like figures in a museum exhibit called The Fall of False Pride. The contracts will be delivered tomorrow, I said, voice calm, final. Sign them. Don't sign them. Either way, things won't go back. As the elevator doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of them. Standing there in the lobby of a company they no longer controlled. Finally seeing me for who I truly was. That night, in my penthouse above the city, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine. Boston sparkled below me, endless lights, endless movement. the city I'd once dreamed of. Now mine. I opened my grandmother's locket, the one piece of family I'd always kept close. Inside, the worn little note she tucked there years ago. Success isn't about who believes in you at the end. It's about believing in yourself from the beginning. I smiled. I thought about that girl in the old family photo. The outsider. The footnote. They'd called me unrealistic. Said my dreams were too big. But they were wrong. Thomas's wedding was only the beginning. Now everyone knew. I wasn't the family disappointment. I was the one who changed everything. I closed the locket, pressed it to my heart, and whispered a quiet thank you to the only person who'd believed in me from the start. Then I raised my glass to the skyline, to my city, and to the empire I built while no one was watching.